Welcome back to Lars Larson Show. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'll be glad to get back to your phone calls and emails at 866-HEY-LARS. That's 866-439-5277. Emails go to talk@larslarson.com. You know, it's always a pleasure to welcome back Frank Gaffney, who's been talking to us for so long as the founder and president of the Center for Security Policy in Washington, D.C. But today is an especially great day, Frank, because we see a president who refuses all of the folks who wanted him to stay in this Iran deal and says, no, this is a bad deal for America. We're getting out of here. What's your take?
Not surprisingly, I'm thrilled, Lars. I think the president has demonstrated great courage and leadership in dispensing with an agreement that was a fraud from the beginning and that was greatly emboldening enemies of this country and creating new perils for our friends and allies, as well as, I think, for Americans, even here at home. So he has done what needed to be done. I would have preferred to have it done earlier on, but at least it's been done now, and it was done with a clarity that I think is probably to the credit, in part at least, of his new national security team. This wouldn't have happened for sure without the changes that he's made, and I'm very grateful to him and his team for making this day happen.
Now, does that mean, Frank, you're tempted to say it wouldn't have happened under McMaster?
No, I'm not tempted to say. I'm saying it. It wouldn't, and it didn't. You know, and for quarter after quarter after quarter, as the president was obliged to go through this review exercise, H.R. McMaster was actively subverting his choices, refusing to give him options in a couple of cases to take this step. So that was not a problem with John Bolton and Mike Pompeo on deck. And again, I'm really delighted. And look, we're not out of the woods. This is going to be a difficult road to hoe, but I think at least we have clarity about the nature of the enemy we're dealing with, rather than this fraud, as I say, that portrayed them as somehow now part of the international community and responsible and like us, seeking peace. And so nothing could have been further from the truth. And I'll just say one other thing, Lars. This is a moment that I think is almost certainly being welcomed by the people of Iran as well, because it means an end to the legitimacy that was being given to this regime that it did not deserve. And I'm, again, appreciative that the president said that in really a very clear way, because that's what's going to help the people there, and it's, I think, going to help us with dealing with the threat that remains as long as this regime is in power.
One of the things I've become aware of when this kind of thing happens is people ask me questions, people I work with, people I encounter on a day-to-day basis. They'll say, isn't this the deal that's keeping Iran from building a nuclear weapon? And I thought, people, I think, in this country who watch the mainstream media, they watch CNN, MSNBC, their local ABC, NBC, CBS affiliate, and especially PBS, they all have characterized this as, well, this is what kept them from building a nuke. Nothing has kept them from building a nuke, not before the deal, not during the deal, and probably not after the deal. And yet an awful lot of people have been bamboozled by this to believe that somehow the mad mullahs were willing to say, yeah, we were going after a nuke for 20 years, but after Donald Trump sat down, or after John Kerry sat down and talked to us, and we agreed to this little piece of paper, this will keep us from building a nuke. And yet people buy that line of baloney.
Well, Lars, I'm not going to make excuses for the media and others that you've mentioned there, but let's be honest. The fraud began with President Obama and his echo chamber, as Ben Rhodes called it, his deputy national security advisor, which was used deliberately to exploit the media. I mean, he talked about know-nothing journalists that were susceptible to being fed their spin and then reporting it faithfully without regard for the facts. And so the American people were lied to. They were lied to by their president. They were lied to by his subordinates, John Kerry among them. And I think what President Trump has done has been to simply tell the truth, finally. And that means I'm hoping that the American people will finally get from their media as well as others what is actually happening here, which is we're facing a dangerous regime, and it's going to take, I think, the end of that regime, hopefully at the hands of the Iranian people themselves, to really redress the danger of the nuclear threat posed by it.
You know, Frank, one of the things that I do wonder about is Iran has said, well, we're going to stick to the deal. Now, I think that's about as valid as anything else Iran has said, and I don't believe it. Europe or some of our European allies have said, well, we're going to stick with the deal. I think that's largely because they want to keep doing business with Iran, and Iran wants to keep doing business with them. But I think the real lie on this may be shown, at some point when the mullahs decide to tell us, by the way, we've got a nuclear weapon. Well, if they're serious about their pledge that despite the United States pulling out, they're going to stick with the deal with everyone else, I think everyone else is going to find out just how valid what the Iranians say is. They're going to say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to secretly develop the weapon that we always planned to secretly develop, and we're going to do it whether the deal is there or not. So their claim that they're going to stick with the deal, and Europe's believing it and not pulling out as we have, I think they're going to find out. It's sad to say, but I think the Iranians will keep on trying to develop that weapon, and I kind of wonder what options the president has next for stopping them.
Well, I think he's going to do whatever he can to prevent them from using business and other financial transactions and the like to prop up this regime in Iran. And if he does, I think it may create some difficulties with the Europeans, but it's a necessary step to alleviate the danger that is going to be posed to them as well as to us. And Lars, this isn't just a hypothetical. We actually have factual evidence that the Iranians lie and cheat and have pursued nuclear weapons, whether they're under agreements or they're not under agreements. And you can bet they've been doing it all this while. We're told that inspectors say that's not so, but the inspectors can't go the places where they're doing it. So we're going to find, I'm quite confident, that unless and until this regime is finished, that kind of work is going to continue, whether the Europeans are enabling it or not. I think everything we can do to dissuade them must be done.
Well, and by the way, was anybody paying attention, Frank, do you think last week when Netanyahu came out and said, hey, the Mossad got a hold of half a ton of documents that show they had a secret weapons development program, which, by the way, the inspectors who came out and couldn't give a clean bill of health, according to the president's team, all they said was, well, we don't see any evidence that they're, developing a weapon. Well, now we've got the evidence. And it doesn't seem anybody wants to pay attention to what came out in those documents from Israel last week.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was referring to. Bibi has laid out the record and the evidence that they do lie and that they will continue to pursue these nuclear weapons ambitions they've had for decades, and no matter what we say or no matter what we do. And the only thing we can, I think, be confident of is if the Iranian people have a chance to get out from under this oppressive theocracy, this Sharia supremacist blight, they will want to be part of the world community, and they will see to it that these weapons are not threats to us or to anybody else.
Absolutely.
That's our best shot.
Frank, thank you so much. We appreciate the time tonight.